So we saw the last lesson that God rewards those who seek good for others. So now we're seeing that God favors those who put that into action, so those who do good deeds. God rewards those who want good things to happen to others. So many of us, many times people are upset when you see good things happening to others, especially when you view them as bad people or sinners or things.
Right.
So you get upset. Hey, why do they get good things? Or if a person you think doesn't deserve it. So the kind of the irony or the tension with it is that not wanting good things for others is part of what keeps you from getting good things. So seeking good means you want good things to happen to other people. So we looked at Ephesians 6, 7, and 8, and it tells us that when you want good things to happen to others, you receive favor. So we see, like we talked about earlier, that the concept of favor, in a sense, mirrors the two commands of Jesus. Love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. So we looked at fearing God. So reverencing God, respecting God, obeying the commandments brings you favor. So that's the first part of it. So loving God with all your heart, mind, and soul brings you favor. But also loving your neighbor as yourself brings you favor. So when you want good things to happen to others, it brings you favor. So desiring good for your neighbor brings you favor. So you're supposed to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So a lot of times we talk about, or we hear, oh, well, that means you have to love yourself first, and that means but it's saying love your neighbor as you not love yourself. It's meaning the same. It doesn't mean the same amount you love yourself. It means the same way you love yourself. So no matter how much someone quote unquote hates themselves or whatever, everyone wants something good to happen to them. Everyone wants something. So it isn't you have to love yourself first. Everyone loves themselves in some sense, that you want something good for yourself. So loving your neighbor as yourself is wanting whatever it is good you want for yourself, wanting that for your neighbor. So that's why when Jesus told the rich man he had to give all his possessions to the poor to get to heaven, because he wanted riches. His heart was for riches. His goal was riches. So if he wanted riches, his goal was for the poor person to have riches.
I see.
Then he would get to heaven.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So if you want health, then that means loving your neighbor as yourself means you want health for your neighbor. If you want to get married, then loving your neighbor as yourself means you want your neighbor to get married. It means you're happy when your neighbor gets married. If you want riches, then loving your neighbor as yourself means you want your neighbor to be rich.
So what you're saying basically is, like say for health, right? You're thinking about, say you want yourself to be healthy, you want to live with good health, but you want your neighbors to live with good health too. But you're not necessarily thinking about your neighbor living with good health as much as you're thinking about yourself living with good health in terms of like the time frame, the time that you do. But you do reflect on your neighbors. You're like, I want them to live with good health, so I'm gonna maybe pray for them that they live with good
Pray
health.
for their health, and you're happy when you like if your neighbor gets cured of cancer or something, you're happy about it, even though you may have cancer yourself. You're happy about your. So it doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, you may still think about your health more than your neighbor's health.
Yeah.
But at least you should be wanting your neighbor to be healthy. Yeah.
So at the core, it's your desire.
It's your desire.
Your heart desire.
So your heart desire should be for your neighbor.
Right.
So if your desire for yourself is designer purses or fancy cars, then your desire should be that your neighbor has designer purses and fancy cars. If your neighbor gets a designer purse and you don't, you should be happy, because you want for your neighbor what you want for yourself. If you're unhappy that your neighbor got something, then that means you're not seeking good for that person. So if they get what you want and you can't afford it, or you never live there, it's like, are you happy about it or are you not? So it's not, just, you're someone who's in your family or someone's close to you. It's your neighbor. Do you want good for your neighbor? And so we see that wanting good for your neighbor brings you favor. And so not wanting good from your neighbor blocks your favor. So the irony is, if you're mad that someone got something, that's blocking you from getting it yourself. The jealousy. Yeah, it was a story of these orphans that this woman adopted them,
Mhm.
and they grew up in an orphanage all their life, in bad situation, and they had 20 kids and not enough food and everything, and so it was a rich family, so they brought them home. They got them to the table. Actually, I guess you probably heard the story, but they brought them to and then so the first night, the the two kids came to the table and they said, "Oh, dinner served." So the kids were grabbing. They went and grabbed the rolls. They start stuffing them in their pocket. They start grabbing everything and put it in. And then the parents were like, "What's good? What are they doing?" And the other kids were like looking. So then eventually then the other people ate. Then the next night the same thing. They're grabbing all the food they can and stuff because they're used to, there not being enough. If you don't grab it now, then and so they had the mentality that, if someone else gets it, then there's not anything left for me. And so, and it's kind of, in some sense, a reflection of how we see God or our Father, which can be a reflection of how we saw our Father, but it's a scarcity mentality, that if someone else gets something good, then that means it's not enough for me. My God doesn't have enough good things to go around.
It's the exact opposite. Right? I mean, there's more than enough for you, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and so.
Because we serve a king that owns cattle on 1,000 hills.
Yeah. And so, so I don't know necessarily how to change that mindset, but maybe in the future we'll look into that.